What is objective reality, and does it actually exist? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Objective reality is whatever exists independently of our perception. However, when viewed through the lens of science, things become far less clear-cut. The limits of our perception. Before we claim that something is truly objective, let's take a moment to examine just how much of the world we are actually capable of perceiving. Sensory perception. We gather information about the world through our 5 primary senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. However, our sensory system captures only a tiny fraction of the information present in the environment. Let's consider a couple of striking examples. Hearing the human ear detects sounds in the frequency range of approximately 16 to 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. Meanwhile, many animals have a far broader range, from as low as 1 Hz, such as elephants and certain whale species, to as high as 200,000 Hz, bats, dolphins, and even some butterflies. And yet, even their hearing is limited. There are sound waves that exist beyond the auditory perception of any living creature. Vision is even more fascinating. Humans rely heavily on sight. 90% of the information processed by our brain comes from the visual system. However, our eyes only detect a narrow sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, between 400 and 700 nanometers. By contrast, the full range of electromagnetic radiation spans from gamma rays, 10 to the power of -6 nanometers, to radio waves stretching kilometers in length. Many animals can see in ultraviolet, detect infrared, or even perceive the Earth's magnetic field. Some species use echolocation to see underwater for miles. And yet, even with all these adaptations, the vast majority of the electromagnetic spectrum remains beyond the perception of both humans and animals. Alright, so we see, we hear, and we can sense a few things through touch. But what happens when all this information reaches the brain? The brain's information filtering system. Even the small fraction of the world that we are capable of perceiving gets filtered by our brain as mostly irrelevant. At any given moment, our brain receives roughly 11 million bits of sensory data per second, yet only 10 to 50 bits make it into conscious awareness. In other words, 99.99% of all incoming information is discarded. Here's the kicker. It's not you, your conscious self, who decides what's important and what's not. That choice is made by your brain and subconscious mind. So in reality, we don't perceive objective truth. We perceive a tiny distorted fragment of what's happening around us. Out of all the information flowing through us at any given moment, only 0.00001% reaches our conscious awareness. And now, the twist. Our brain needs things to make sense. To create a clear and coherent picture of the world, it fills in the gaps, invents logical explanations, and constructs missing pieces of reality in whatever way seems to fit best, all while sprinkling in our deeply subjective beliefs about what's right and wrong, but that's a topic for another time. And yet, despite the sheer absurdity of how little we actually perceive, we argue vehemently over what is true and objective in the world. Now, isn't that a paradox? So, next time you feel like someone is not hearing what you say, or that you yourself feel the urge to make them hear you and agree to your point of view, stop for a moment and remember what you've just learned. We are here to share this life on one planet with millions of other people, and each of them has their own unique way to see this reality, perceive things, and hear different senses from the same spoken words. Be sincere in your curiosity. Isn't it amazing how different our perceptions of one and the same event can be? Ask the person you are talking to a few questions about what they mean or what makes them think or feel the way they do. Try to hear and see what is behind the words, other one's personal image of reality. You don't have to always agree with others, but when you begin to understand the other person better, it turns out that in most cases you don't have to argue anymore. It's easier to agree about things constructively, and you don't have to experience strong negative emotions as often as it may happen to you. Subscribe to Neurons Numina for more amazing science about our mind. Share this video with someone who may be curious about the nature of our mind ABD perception.